Here's something nobody tells you about grief. It doesn't wait for you to finish crying before the vultures show up. 3 weeks. That's how long it took after we buried my grandfather before my mother sent a group text that read like a summons. Family meeting, Sunday, 3 p.m. Be on time. No, how are you holding up? No, I miss him too. Just a demand wrapped in a period. And God help me, I went. The house looked the same from the outside. Neat little shrubs, blue shutters. That porch swing nobody ever sat in because my mother said it made the house look rural. But the second I crossed the threshold, my stomach knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. It was the seating. My family, Karen, Mason, my stepfather Craig, they were arranged in the living room like furniture in a showroom, stiff, positioned, and sitting in the 2 best armchairs, the ones my grandfather used to sink into on Sunday mornings with his crossword, were 2 men I'd never seen before. Tailored suits, expensive watches, smiles that didn't match their eyes. "Francis," my mother said, and there it was. That voice. You know the one. The voice certain women use when they need something from you but want you to believe it was your idea. Sweet on top, steel underneath. "Meet our family advisors." She said it like she was introducing old friends. Like this wasn't a trap dressed up in good lighting. One of them stood to shake my hand. I didn't move. Instead, I looked at Karen. She was staring into her lap like a kid who just got caught. Then Mason, my younger brother, 23 years old and already wearing the face of someone who's been lied to more times than he can count. His eyes were red, but dry, like he'd already done his crying somewhere private. Craig stood by the fireplace with his arms folded. I swear that man practices his poses in the mirror. "Would you like some coffee?" my mother asked. I sat down, placed my leather folder across my lap and said, "No, I'd like to know why I'm here." "Because we're family," she said, the word dripping like syrup off a spoon, and right then I understood exactly what this was. Not a conversation, not a reunion, it was a shakedown, a polished, perfumed, carefully rehearsed shakedown. They wanted what my grandfather left me, and they dressed it up as love. Let me back up. Because none of this makes sense unless you know who Harold Vance was and what he meant to me. My grandfather didn't talk much. He didn't need to. He was the kind of man who said more with a handshake than most people say in a speech. He started Vance Materials when he was 27, with a rusted pickup and a borrowed $100 from a neighbor who believed in him. By the time I was born, his company supplied lumber, insulation, and concrete composites to contractors across 5 states. Every builder in the region knew his name, not because he advertised, because he showed up. Every time. When I was a little girl, while Karen begged for glitter shoes and Mason crashed toy trains into the furniture, I asked Grandpa to take me to the warehouse. I couldn't explain why. I just loved it. The smell of fresh-cut pine, the rumble of forklifts echoing through steel rafters, the way his voice, low, calm, certain, carried across the floor like it belonged there. When I turned 12, he sat me down at his desk, slid a leather-bound ledger in front of me, and said, "Let's see how that brain of yours handles columns instead of crayons." I never looked back. My mother? She never understood it. Denise Allard, born Vance, remarried twice, reinvented constantly, liked beautiful things. Fast. She once told me, "Your grandfather builds warehouses, I build a life." And what a life it was. 3 maxed credit cards, a leased Mercedes, spa retreats she called emotional recovery, charity galas she attended for the networking, handbags she bought on clearance and pretended were full price. She didn't build a life, she decorated one, and she sent the bill to her father. The will was read 2 weeks after the funeral. Wood-paneled conference room, antique leather chairs, the smell of furniture polish so thick you could taste it. My mother showed up in black silk and oversized sunglasses, like a widow from a daytime soap opera, mourning a man she mostly called when she needed money. Karen sniffled softly through the opening formalities. Mason looked like he didn't know where he was. Craig sat behind my mother like a wall. Mr. Hallbrook, the executor, read through the small stuff first. A scholarship to Grandpa's old college, a trust for a retired employee who'd worked the warehouse floor for 30 years. Quiet, thoughtful gifts from a quiet, thoughtful man. Then he read the rest. To my granddaughter, Frances Claire Allard, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all remaining shares in Vance Materials, my personal investment accounts, real property holdings, and personal effects. The room didn't just go silent, it collapsed. I felt it in my chest before I heard my mother's voice crack through the stillness like a rock through glass. "This is a joke." She shoved her sunglasses up. He was confused. Read it again. "I've read it several times, Mrs. Vance," Halbrook said, steady as a man who'd done this before. "Your father was explicit." Karen gasped, and I swear it sounded rehearsed. "He loved all of us. He wouldn't pick favorites." Mason said nothing. He just rubbed his palms together like he didn't know what to do with his hands. Or his future. "This isn't happening," my mother whispered. But it was. In that one moment, I went from being the quiet granddaughter who liked spreadsheets and warehouse visits to the sole heir of everything Harold Vance had spent 50 years building, and I wasn't ready, not even close. After the reading, my mother caught me in the parking lot. She walked toward me the way people walk when they're pretending not to be furious. Slow steps, tight smile, poison behind the teeth. "Just sign everything over," she said. "I'll divide it fairly. I'll make sure everyone's taken care of." I didn't answer, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew that whatever came out of my mouth next would either start a war or end a relationship, maybe both. "I need time to think," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "This isn't yours, Frances. It's ours. Family money. Family legacy." "That's not what Grandpa said." And just like that, the mask slipped. "He was manipulated," she hissed. "You spent too much time with him. He wasn't well." But he had been well. He'd updated that will 6 months before he died. Sharp, lucid, and fully intentional. I know because I was there the day he made his decision. He sat me down in his study, looked me dead in the eye, and said something I'll carry for the rest of my life. "They're going to hate this, but I built this for someone who understands what it cost me. That person is not your mother." He wasn't being cruel. He was being honest. And honesty, in my family, has always been the most unforgivable sin. That night, the messages started. "Karen, please don't let this ruin everything. We're still your family." My mother, "You'll understand when you have children of your own. Family comes first." And Mason, one word, sent at 1:43 in the morning. "Why?" By sunrise, my voicemail was full. Women I hadn't seen since middle school bake sales were calling to tell me how disappointed they were, how my mother always spoke so highly of me, how heartbroken everyone was. Funny how disappointment only flows one direction in families like mine. What none of them knew, what none of them ever bothered to know, was that I didn't inherit Grandpa's legacy like a lottery ticket. I earned it. One late-night phone call at a time. One warehouse visit. One quarterly report. One conversation where he trusted me with the truth and I didn't flinch. But none of that mattered. Not to them. To them, I was just the girl who got lucky and refused to share. 2 days after the will reading, Mason showed up outside my apartment. No call, no text. Just his hunched silhouette on the lobby security camera, hands buried in his jacket pockets, chin tucked, looking like a kid standing outside the principal's office. When I opened the door, he didn't come in. "I'm not here to argue," he said. "Okay." He looked up. His eyes were bloodshot, but strangely focused, like a man who'd been up all night wrestling with something he didn't want to say out loud. "Mom's losing it. She's calling realtors, talking about refinancing the house before you freeze the assets." I blinked. "I haven't frozen anything. She doesn't believe that." "Mason, I just wanted to warn you." His voice dropped. "She's planning something." Then he left. No hug, no handshake. Just turned and walked back down the hallway with that heavy shuffle of someone who doesn't know where he belongs anymore. I shut the door, stood there in the silence, not sad, not angry, just hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left the shell standing. It was beginning, and I knew it wasn't going to end clean. That night, Liam came over, my boyfriend. The one person in my world who hadn't looked at me sideways since the reading. He brought Thai food and sat beside me on the couch while I pushed rice around a paper plate and stared at nothing. "I want you to meet someone," he said quietly. "Her name's Angela Dwyer, probate lawyer, old friend from law school." I didn't look up. "She's not for a fight," he added. "Unless you need one. She's for protection." I didn't say yes. I just nodded, and sometimes a nod is all the courage you've got. The next morning I called her. We met in a small office above a florist shop. No intimidating glass walls, no mahogany power desks. Just warm light, green plants on every surface, and a woman who listened to me talk for 40 minutes without interrupting once. When I finished, she leaned back and steepled her fingers. "You're already in the middle of a coordinated pressure campaign," she said. "Classic family guilt playbook. But based on the will and everything you've told me, you're standing on solid ground." "I don't want to fight them," I said. "I just want it to stop." "Then we prepare, just in case." She leaned forward. "Document everything. Every text, every voicemail, every unannounced visit. And Francis, don't sign a single thing. I don't care what they call it. Don't sign." I agreed. It sounded manageable. It wasn't. The very next day, my mother posted a photo of herself shopping for patio furniture. Big smile, full makeup, retail therapy in its purest form. She captioned it, "Jark self-care." That same afternoon, she texted me saying she couldn't pay her electric bill. That's when I stopped deleting messages and started printing them. The formal invitation came 4 days later. Another text. Same energy as the first one, but sharper now. Sunday. 3 p.m. The house. "Let's resolve this. Bring your paperwork. No please, no maybe, just a fuse, lit and ticking." Angela didn't like it. "This feels like an ambush," she said. "It is," I told her. "But I'm not walking in blind." She offered to come inside with me. I said no. "I need to face them on my own, but I want you close." She looked at me hard. "One text. That's all it takes. I'll be at that door in 60 seconds. I arrived at 2:59. The curtains were pulled shut. The porch smelled like my mother's perfume, which meant she'd been standing outside recently, probably rehearsing her opening line. She pulled the door open before I could knock. "Francis!" Full beam, hair freshly blown out, teeth catching the light like a campaign ad. Right on time. Inside, the living room had been rearranged, not subtly, deliberately. Karen perched on the edge of the couch, spine straight, fingers knotted together, Mason beside her staring at the rug, Craig by the fireplace again, same arms, same jaw, same energy of a man who thinks standing wide makes him important. And there they were again. 2 new suits in the armchairs, legal pads, leather briefcases, wedding bands catching the lamplight, smiles wide enough to sell you a used car. "This is Mr. Hale and Mr. Darnell," my mother announced, sweeping her hand like she was revealing prizes on a game show. "They've kindly offered to help us untangle this unfortunate misunderstanding." I nodded, didn't shake hands, didn't smile. There was only one chair left, a tall, hard-backed wooden seat placed directly across from all of them. Interrogation seating. I sat down without a word, set my leather folder on my lap, and waited. "Coffee?" my mother offered again, still clinging to that thin little rope of civility. "I'm fine. Let's get to it." Mr. Hale cleared his throat the way men do when they want you to take them seriously. "We're here because your family is deeply concerned about the strain this situation has caused. No one wants a prolonged dispute, especially when your grandfather's clear intention was for the family to remain united." I let the silence hang. Then, "He wrote a will." My mother cut in, voice smooth and rehearsed. "And we're not disputing that, sweetheart. But surely you can see that dividing everything equally would be more harmonious." Harmony wasn't in the will either. Mr. Darnell reached into his briefcase and slid a stack of papers across the coffee table toward me. "This is a voluntary redistribution agreement. You retain 20%. The rest returns to the family, as was always understood." I looked at him. Understood. By whom? Karen jumped in, voice trembling with something that was supposed to pass for sincerity. "Grandpa was sick, Francis. He wasn't thinking clearly. He thought you'd know what to do with everything. I do know, I said. Which is exactly why I won't be signing that. Mason shifted. Mom says if we don't figure this out now, we could lose the house. I kept my voice level. And why is that? Did someone take out a second mortgage again? My mother's composure cracked, just a flash, a fracture across her face, before the mask snapped back. Francis, don't do this. Mr. Hale jumped in with practiced urgency. It would be quite unfortunate if this moved to court. Claims of undue influence could seriously muddy the estate's reputation. And there it was, the real play. The threat they'd been saving, dressed up in legal jargon and expensive cologne. I placed my hand flat on the folder in my lap. Before I respond, I said, keeping my voice calm enough to hear my own heartbeat, I'd like to clarify one thing. I turned to Craig. 6 months ago, you told Grandpa's home nurse that you'd already put a deposit on a property in Naples. Was that purchased with inheritance money you hadn't actually received yet? His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. I have a recording, I continued, and a paper trail. My mother's smile died. I opened the folder, pulled out a single sheet, a photocopy from my grandfather's personal ledger, his handwriting. Neat, precise, damning. Loan to Denise, $30,000. She said it was for Mason's college. Found out later, crisis cruise, last time. Then I placed the next page beside it. A dated screenshot of my mother's Instagram post, champagne glass in hand, ocean behind her, sun in her hair. Caption, deserved this. Blessed. I looked up at the two advisors. Still feel like drawing up paperwork? Nobody spoke. My mother shot to her feet so fast her chair shrieked across the hardwood. You ungrateful little... I didn't flinch. I slid another sheet across the table. May 8th. You told Grandpa that Karen needed emergency dental surgery. He gave you $20,000. I looked at Karen. You were in Scottsdale that weekend. Spa package. I remember the monogrammed robe. You posted it. Karen turned the color of old milk. Craig swore under his breath. This is low, Francis. Digging through a dead man's notes just to twist things against his own family. He wasn't confused, I said. He was tired of being lied to. And he kept records because he knew this exact moment was coming. I reached for the last item in my folder, a sealed envelope, slightly soft at the edges from handling. On the front, in my grandfather's unmistakable looping script. For Francis. If they come for it. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. But the two men in suits were already shifting. The confidence had drained out of them like water through a cracked foundation. Mr. Hale tugged at his tie. Miss Allard, we were told this would be a cooperative conversation. It was never going to be that, I said. And you're not legal counsel, are you? You're pressure brokers. I turned to my mother. You didn't tell them I already retained an actual attorney, did you? She's parked outside right now. One word from me, and she walks through that door. The two men stood up almost simultaneously. We'll excuse ourselves, one mumbled, snapping his briefcase shut. Mrs. Vance, we were unaware of any existing legal representation. My mother stood rigid. Her face had turned to stone, but the cracks were showing everywhere. This isn't over, she hissed. I stood up, slow, steady. Actually, I said, it is. I gathered my papers one by one. No rush. I'm not signing anything. I'm not enabling your spending. And I'm not going to stand here while you try to rewrite the past just because the present doesn't suit you anymore. You owe us. I owe Grandpa. He's who I'm honoring. And then... Mason stood up. Everyone froze. Even Craig. Even... I didn't know, Mason said, his voice barely above a whisper. About the cruise, about the spa, about using my name to take money from him. He turned slowly to face our mother. You told me Francis was selfish, but you lied. About all of it. Mason, sit down. No. That single word hit the room like a church bell. He turned to me, eyes wide, jaw tight. Can I come with you? I nodded. Let's go. Craig stepped forward, chest puffed, veins showing in his neck. You little... I raised my phone. This entire conversation has been recorded. He stopped dead. We walked out in silence, past the stunned faces, past the scattered papers, past a family that had spent years assuming I'd fold. Not this time. Angela was already standing beside her car when we hit the driveway. She looked at Mason, then at me. "You okay?" "He's with me," I said, "and we're done here." Behind us, the front door slammed so hard the porch light flickered. I didn't look back. Mason didn't say a word the whole drive back. He sat in the passenger seat with his eyes straight ahead, one hand gripping the seatbelt like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. Every few minutes his fingers would tighten, then release, tighten, release, like he was having an argument with himself and losing. I didn't push. Some silences need to be left alone. They're not empty. They're full of things a person isn't ready to say yet. When we got to my apartment, he followed me inside without asking if he could stay. He already knew, and I already knew he needed to. "Couch folds out," I said. "Sheets are clean." He nodded. "Thanks." That was it. That was all we had that night. And honestly, it was enough. I made tea. He drank it. I scrolled through emails I couldn't focus on. He lay back and stared at the ceiling like the answers to everything might be written up there in the plaster. We didn't rehash the meeting, didn't dissect who said what or how our mother looked when her mask finally crumbled. We just existed in the same room, breathing the same quiet air, and for the first time in weeks that silence didn't feel like a wound. It felt like rest. By morning, something had shifted inside me. Not dramatically. Not the way it happens in movies where someone wakes up with music swelling and a new fire in their eyes. It was subtler than that. Quieter. Like a bone that had been out of place for a long time, finally clicking back where it belonged. I had a plan, not a revenge plan, not a power move, just a direction. I drove to Grandpa's house, the one I now legally owned but hadn't set foot in since the funeral. The key turned slow and heavy in the lock, like the door itself was asking me if I was sure. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and memory. The kind of stillness that only settles in a home after someone's gone. Not just from the room, but from the world. I walked past the kitchen where he used to make his coffee at 5 a.m. Black, no sugar, same chipped mug for 15 years. Past the hallway lined with framed photos, me at the warehouse, age 9, wearing a hard hat 3 sizes too big, grinning like I'd just been handed the keys to the universe. I went straight to his study. The smell hit me first, cedar, old paper, a ghost of coffee grounds that had soaked into the wood over decades. His desk sat exactly as he'd left it, reading glasses folded on top of a stack of trade journals, a pen resting diagonal across a yellow notepad, as if he'd just stepped out to take a phone call and was coming right back. He wasn't coming back. I sat in his chair. Let myself feel the weight of that for a moment. Then I opened the center drawer. The journal was right where I expected it to be. Leather-bound, thick, held together with a rubber band that had lost most of its stretch. I'd seen it before. He used it to track everything. Not just business numbers, but thoughts. Observations. The kind of private reckoning a man does when he's spent a lifetime building something and starts to wonder who's going to carry it forward. I flipped through slowly. Dates, dollar amounts, names circled, underlined, crossed out. Notes scrawled in the margins in that sharp, no-nonsense handwriting of his, the kind that looked almost angry until you realized it was just efficient. And then, near the back, I found something I'd missed the first time. A single paragraph tucked into the margin like an afterthought. But it wasn't an afterthought. It was a verdict. Frances has what Denise never learned: restraint. Clarity. If she chooses to lead, this business may survive me. If she chooses to love, it may outlive us both. I closed the journal and pressed it against my chest. I sat there for a long time, not reading, not thinking, just breathing in a room that still smelled like him, holding the words of a man who saw me, truly saw me, when nobody else was paying attention. That afternoon, I met Angela for lunch and brought the journal. She read the entry twice, then looked up at me with the expression of someone who's seen a lot of ugly family battles but still believes in the occasional good ending. "This is powerful," she said. and legally useful. We filed it as supplementary evidence with the probate court, not to fight anyone, but to seal every loophole before someone tried to crawl through one. Angela went over the estate documents line by line, double-checked every clause, flagged every potential angle of attack. She wasn't dramatic about it. She was thorough, and in that moment, thorough felt like the greatest kindness anyone had ever shown me. Before we finished, I asked her to draft one more thing, a small educational trust in Mason's name, enough to cover his degree. No strings, no conditions, no leash. She looked at the figures, then at me. "This is clean," she said. "Fair, generous. It's what Grandpa would have done." She smiled. "I know." When I got home that evening, Mason was sitting cross-legged on the couch reading one of Grandpa's old trade magazines, the kind with grainy photos of concrete plants and lumber yards and full-page ads for industrial sealant. He looked up when I walked in, and for the first time in days, his face didn't look haunted. "You know," I said, leaning against the doorframe, "Grandpa always wanted to push the company into green materials, eco-lumber, thermal concrete, sustainable sourcing, but the board dragged their feet, told him it was too risky, too early." Mason set the magazine down. "I remember. He used to rant about it at dinner, said the future was going to show up whether they were ready or not." I smiled. That sounded exactly like him. "What would you say to an internship?" I asked. "Real work, long hours, no shortcuts, no special treatment because your last name's on the building." He blinked, sat up a little straighter. "Are you serious?" "Completely." A slow grin spread across his face, the kind that doesn't come from excitement, but from something deeper, relief, hope. Maybe the first faint flicker of believing he could be something other than what our mother had made him feel like. "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." We clinked mugs of cold tea like it was champagne. No toast, no speech, just two people who'd walked through the same fire and come out the other side still standing. It wasn't the kind of legacy my mother wanted. It was better. A year later, I reopened the doors of Vance Materials. Not as Harold Vance's quiet granddaughter. Not as the girl who got lucky with a will, but as the woman who'd earned her seat at the table long before anyone thought to pull out a chair. The first thing I did was greenlight the sustainable materials division Grandpa had been dreaming about for years. Eco-lumber, low-carbon concrete, recycled insulation composites. Everything he'd pitched to a board that told him the market wasn't ready. The market was ready. It had been ready. They just hadn't been listening. Mason runs that division now. He's finishing his degree at the same time. Taking night classes, showing up to the warehouse at 7 in the morning, staying late to walk the floor the way Grandpa used to. He's becoming the kind of man our grandfather always hoped he'd be, quietly capable, steady, focused, not trying to prove anything to anyone except himself. Sometimes I catch him standing in the middle of the warehouse with his hands in his pockets, just looking around, at the steel rafters, the stacked pallets, the forklifts humming in the distance. And I know exactly what he's feeling. Because I felt it too, when I was 9 years old, and the whole world smelled like pine. Karen reaches out now and then. A careful text here, a birthday card there. Small gestures from a safe distance, like someone testing whether the bridge will hold before stepping onto it. I don't swing the door wide open, but I don't slam it shut either. Some relationships heal slow, some don't heal at all. I've made peace with not knowing which one this will be. My mother moved. Different city, different zip code, different audience for the same performance. I hear things through the grapevine occasionally. She's redecorating, she's joined a new social club, she's telling people I shut her out over money. The story changes depending on who's listening. It always did, and honestly, that's fine. I stopped needing her version of events to feel solid in my own. That might have been the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than the meeting, harder than the paperwork, harder than sitting across from two men in borrowed suits while my own family tried to take what wasn't theirs. Letting go of the need to be understood by the people who were never going to try. Some nights I go back to Grandpa's study. I sit in his chair. I open the journal. Not to read anything specific, just to feel the weight of it in my hands, the worn leather, the faint smell of cedar and old ink. The quiet proof that somebody once sat in this exact spot and thought about me with something close to pride. Near the very last page, there's an entry I come back to more than any other. No date, no numbers. Just a single line written in handwriting so steady it makes my throat tight every time. Frances won't always be loved for doing what's right, but she'll sleep at night. He was right. I do. The wealth my grandfather left me was never really about the stocks or the property or the company name on the side of a building. It was the clarity to see what mattered, the boundaries to protect it, the strength to stand in a room full of people who wanted me to fold and stay standing. He didn't leave me his empire because I was his favorite. He left it because I was the only one who wouldn't burn it to the ground, and in the end, I didn't just carry his legacy forward, I built my own.